Romans 8:3. For what the law was powerless to do, because it was weakened by the flesh, God did by sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh to be a sin offering. I wanted to think through three words, three concepts as we continue to memorize Romans 8:3. And the first concept is this pairing together of law and powerless. For what the law was powerless to do. Paul is a good Hebrew. He is a Pharisee. He would go to Harvard or Oxford and have the chair of the religion department. He's a brilliant man. When he looks at the law of God, he's not saying there's a problem with the law. Paul would have understood Psalm 119, that the law of God is perfect, that the law of God is beautiful, that it makes wise the fool, that it's like honey on the comb, it's sweet to the taste, that the law of God is beautiful. It represents the perfection of God's character. Paul's not saying the law is bad. He's saying the more and more I see the law, the closer and closer I get to the law, the more I see my own need. Remember in Philippians, he says, as to the law, I was perfect. And you go, okay. So externally, he could say with a good conscience, he was perfect. But then in Romans, he says, the more I consider the 10th commandment, that you shall not covet, this internal desire, this envy, this lust, this longing, he said, I'm wretched, I'm wicked. I see inside me, on the outside, I look great. But on the inside, the law is my accuser. Paul says the law is a rigorous accuser, and the law is a helpless friend. The law can't help me become what I want to be. It only shows me, like a mirror, what I'm not. That's what Paul is saying. For what the law was powerless to do. God's law is perfect. It reflects his perfection. But it's also powerless to save us. By following the law, it can't save me. I can't just paint by numbers or follow the algorithm or plug everything in. The law is powerless to save me. Not because of the law, but because of me. And the more we spend time thinking about it, we go, ugh, no way. Is that what God requires? He's that perfect? For what the law was powerless to do, because it was weakened by the flesh. So what's the flesh? Sometimes that's translated as the sinful nature. But I love that the NIV, the new translation of the NIV, says the flesh. This isn't the body. This isn't like the Platonic dividing of the soul is good and the flesh is bad. The flesh is just mankind as we are, in our very best, with a good meal and a shower and a shave and a full 8 hours of sleep. At our very best, we still bump up against our own limitations. For what the law was powerless to do, because it was weakened by the flesh. The flesh is our best attempt. It's not just the bad things we do. It's the good things we do and the reasons why we try to do the good things. It's like me having already shot this video 3 times. No kidding. When I was talking about Paul coveting, one of these earlier takes, I called it the 9th commandment. Then I had to go look it up. I'm like, I'm a pastor. I'm supposed to know that coveting is the 10th commandment. And so I'm going on and talking. And I said, I can't post a video where I talk about Paul learning about coveting and saying the 9th commandment. So the flesh is me performing. It's an Instagram filter. It's me staying farther away so you can't see the wrinkles on my head. That's just the flesh. It's not me being bad. It's me using cover up. It's me editing and revising and making sure that I put my best foot forward so that you don't see me as I really am. That's the flesh. The flesh is us being human. It's called self-righteousness. I'm performing for you. I'm performing for God. I want everybody to see me at my very best. That's the flesh. It's not just being sinful and gross and weird and yucky and rejectable. It's me trying to do stuff that makes you like me. For what the law was powerless to do, because it was weakened by the flesh. Our best efforts was weak. We are weak. We can't keep the law. But now this last one, this is the best. For what the law was powerless to do, because it was weakened by the flesh. And then hold on. God did. In Romans 8:3, you have this brilliant declaration. Our best efforts, we're entrapped in ourselves. We're revising, we're editing, we're filtering, we're performing. We're weakened by our own abilities. We're exposed. God's perfect character, our imperfections. God's amazingness, our hypocrisy. God does it. You know, Romans is a book about God. Over 150 times. More than any other book in the entire New Testament, except Acts. But in Acts, the word God appears like, according to Leon Morris, a commentator, the word God appears once every 100 words. But in Romans, God appears like once every 40 words. Beyond all the prepositions and all the definite articles, God is the central theme of Romans. Romans is a book about God doing for the people he loves. God did. For what the law was powerless to do because it was weakened by the flesh, God did. Better than creation. Jonathan Edwards, the president of Princeton, and 300 years ago, a brilliant scholar said, God converting, God transforming, God saving one human being is the greatest miracle on earth that's ever happened. Better than creating the stars and the world, God saving you, God saving me, is the greatest work that he's ever accomplished. For what the law was powerless to do, because it was weakened by the flesh, God did. What God has done for you by sending his own Son to save you from your sin, to save you from yourself, to save you from your revising and editing and filtering and making sure that everything was just right. God did it by sending his Son, Jesus Christ. There's no better news in the entire world. I can't perform my way to health. I can't perform my way to holiness. I can't dance for God and get him off my back. I want to know him and be loved by him. And God does it. That is good news. For what the law was powerless to do, because it was weakened by the flesh, God did by sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh to be a sin offering. Praise God.